The Spin-off Podcast Network. You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by SparkLab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about SparkLab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
Kia ora koutou katoa, and welcome to Business is Boring. Vinyl is one of the great comeback stories. From dropping to a novelty kept alive by music enthusiasts, vinyl is now outselling CDs and is the main way for people to buy physical music, which is really cool. For years, fans have insisted it sounds better and it's a great ritual, but for a long time, there was simply no way to press records in New Zealand, with the last plant closing in the 80s. A few years ago, a local vinyl fan, Ben Wallace, wanted to make a record for his band, and finding it wasn't possible here, started looking into what it took to actually make one. Working with a mate, Joel Woods, Holiday Records was born, and the two found a machine and have built as a partner to the local independent music scene, growing to now be operating 2 shifts, 7 days a week, to now do more in export than locally, serving new and established names across Australasia. To talk the story, the journey, and what's next, we're joined by Ben Wallace and Joel Woods of Holiday Records. Tēnā korua.
Morning.
Kia ora, Simon.
Hey, so we're joined today by Joel out of Spain, living overseas, and Ben in studio. Tell us how you two kind of got together in the first place, and what you were up to in your careers before Holiday Records.
Well, Joel and I met at university in Dunedin, became mates, and we flatted together in the third year of our studies down there. Then we went into New York and we lived together there. We were basically just figuring out what we wanted to do in life, each of us. We came back to New Zealand, and Joel, who'd studied law, took on a criminal defence law degree. And I was working various retail jobs. And I joined a band, and it was a folk band. And because it was folk music, we kind of wanted the release, all of our releases to just be on vinyl. So we dug into it. You couldn't get it done in New Zealand. There was one in Australia, and they were pretty busy. So it kind of set the alarm bells ringing. And I'll let Joel talk about how where he was at with the law.
Yeah,
from criminal defence.
Yeah. So, as Ben said, we met in Otago, studied law there, did a little stint in NYC, bit more of like a cultural exchange versus, finding our careers over there. But I studied law and came back to Auckland after New York and, wanted to just try it out. I spent 5 years studying it. So I managed to score a pretty good job working as a junior barrister for just one criminal defence barrister here in Auckland. And I lasted about a year. It was pretty stressful, thrown in the deep end. But, I guess we'll find out later. We sort of threw ourselves in the deep end with this one too. But I used to visit Ben at home in Auckland after finishing work as a lawyer and just offloaded all my stress to him most days. And then he probably figured out that I wasn't overly happy where I was. And it wasn't too long after that he shoulder tapped me with this insane idea of starting a pressing plant.
Yeah, so how did you look into that? Like, how did you kind of go from there's no way to make records here at any sensible kind of level to maybe it could be us?
Well, it was just purely the lack of people doing it. There was no one. So it's like, this has got to be possible. It might be really hard, but it's got to be possible. And so I kind of did start looking into it, but quickly realised it was probably a bit too much of too big a beast kind of to do on my own. Joel has a lot of amazing skills and talents that I don't. He's also got a design and marketing degree as well as his law degree. And like he's mentioned, he was not overly stoked with the criminal defence lawyer kind of position he was in. So we kind of both got together and did research and realised, yes, this is a good idea, but what's a game plan to make it possible? Because it's obviously hard if no one's doing it. We looked into refurbishing old machines and quickly realised, given our inexperience, that was probably not a good idea. So we researched some more and we found out there was a company over in Toronto, Canada, that were building these new automated machines. And we'd heard stories of rookies buying these machines, or inexperienced people buying machines and being able to press high quality records. And that kind of set us on our path. We went, that's what we can do. We can, that's a possibility for us.
I bet that's like a pretty big undertaking though, right? Like a great big machine from like, some businesses you can, you start a fashion label, you can, try it out with some T-shirts or a small run in the first instance, but you're pretty 0 to 100 if you've got to get a great big bit of kit out of Toronto, right?
Yeah, as I said, we definitely threw ourselves deep into the deep end because we had no experience in pressing records, no experience in the music industry, no experience in even how to start or run a business. So we're like, let's just do all that at once and make this as hard as possible. But yeah, I think as Ben said, without these brand new machines, like state-of-the-art automated machines, and this company based in Canada that offered training, it would have been a lot harder. So we were put in a pretty good position to be able to at least give it a crack. Because as Ben said, in New Zealand, it was impossible to get records pressed here since the 80s. In Australia, there's only one pressing plant, and they were super busy because of that. And then, and then overseas was your only option in the Northern Hemisphere, which became expensive with shipping costs and just, generally just pretty challenging with the time difference, language barriers. So we thought it was a pretty good opportunity to try to step into New Zealand and offer it here. And then, I guess we can get to it a bit later, but, we only thought would only be offering New Zealand records. But it turns out, the rest of the world are pretty hungry for New Zealand made records these days too.
Yeah, wow. Because vinyl has gone through, such a kind of interesting journey, right? From being the mainstay to being something for enthusiasts to then now being the mainstay of physical records again. And I mean, a couple of years ago, I remember reading a thing saying that, people that had always been on the side of vinyl were no longer able to, indie musicians and indie labels were no longer able to get bookings because, they are reprinting Phil Collins or something and every kind of dad in the world was buying it. And so that's the kind of environment that you were stepping into, right? Like this massive uptick in demand.
Yeah. At the time when we were researching and even when we got a machine, it was definitely growing, and we sort of thought it almost plateaued. We just didn't think it could grow much more, especially after speaking with some people that we went and visited in the States and Canada. But it just kept growing and sort of continues to still grow. Only recently, in America, vinyls outsold CDs. And I thought before jumping on this podcast, I'd probably checked whether the same's in New Zealand. And in 2021, it was outselling CDs and obviously still continues to track that way. So there's definitely the demand. So we did come into a pretty hot market, not to downplay what we offered in our services and skills, but there was lots of demand and the supply was pretty limited. Yeah.
What's the attraction of vinyl for you two?
Well, I grew up around vinyl and I've always loved it. I think that was probably my main attraction, is that I've always just been around it. I've been a music enthusiast my whole life. As I mentioned earlier, I was in a folk band. I really like folk music, blues music. And I see that it's synonymous with kind of vinyl and analog recording and production. For me, it's just the beauty of it. It's cool. It kind of, all the cliche, stereotypical, love holding it, the tactile nature, the warm sound, even the pops, the clicks, the hiss, the big artwork. Personally, for me, that's what I love about it. Yeah.
I think, everything that Ben said, I agree with, but I just think it makes more music a bit more meaningful, it's just a lot less disposable than streaming, or you just listen to a single here and there. You sit down, you listen to an album from start to finish and really appreciate how much work an artist has put into this whole body of music. So I think for me, that's pretty important. And I think it's just a cool thing to be able to put on with a group of friends and, at a dinner party, for example. It really sets the mood.
It's like a magic ritual as well, hey? And a lot of the world caught up with it. Like I became one of the, lockdown cliches of people getting like real into their vinyl again after not having been into it for years. Because if you're stuck at home, it's like, it kind of transports you, You've got this nice little ritual, pick up a record, go through and pick up Carole King's Tapestry and it's a banger, end to end. Amazing. But, when in your life are you chucking Carole King's Tapestry on your Spotify?
Yeah.
It was an interesting period, especially like you said, the lockdown one. It was like a Bunsen burner under an already heating market, because at-home entertainment became so important because people were spending a lot of time there. Maybe disposable incomes had increased a touch with no travel or buying new cars or whatever. So vinyl took on another kind of spike, in demand from a consumer point of view anyway, but it definitely flowed through to us, and it was a really interesting period.
Yeah, so how does, it seems like a very kind of simple kind of question here. How does it actually work? How do you make, so you get this great big machine, but, how do you then make a vinyl record?
Well, as basically as we can put it, we get the master record cut actually in the UK, because that's where we get our stampers made too. So a record's cut and then it gets casted and gets a negative mold of that record made out of nickel, and it gets sent down to us and we can plug that into our machine. So our machine basically melts down PVC pellets and creates these hot little hockey puck shaped bits of warm plastic that gets fed into our machine and then pressed between these two stampers, these two plates that imprint this bit of plastic with the grooves of a record. So that's where the name pressing comes from. And then it slowly presses it, heats it, and you can imagine some plastic oozing out the outside, and then it cools it. So these plates get hot and then really cold, cools it, sets it, and then the machine then takes it onto a trimming platter and trims off that excess oozed plastic, and then drops it on a spindle. So that happens in about 30 seconds. Hopefully that made sense. It sort of did in my head.
Well, where do those plates come from? So there's two metal plates that act as the presses, pressing in on that hockey puck of warm vinyl, PVC was it? Yeah. And then so where do those stampers come from, and how do you get the right grooves onto them?
We have a stamper manufacturing partner that we use in the UK. So their only job is making these stampers for pressing plants all around the world. Or only limited now because they're so busy that they're not taking any more clients. But we have a couple of cutting engineers that we use strictly in the UK, and then they get these lacquer discs, which is what they cut their original record on, send them to this stamper manufacturer, and then they ship stampers to us every week, and that's what we use. And then we hold on to these stampers at our plant, and we can press about 1,000 records with them. So say if a client wanted to press a few more 100 records after their first pressing, then we can, and just plug it in there and you're away.
And all the other elements of the record, like the sleeve with the lovely printing and the liner notes and all those kind of elements, do you produce those as well at the site, or?
Yeah, we're a full service pressing plant, so we just take the clients' files for audio, master for vinyl, and artwork, and we take care of the rest. So we don't print on site, but we get it done for them. So we can do anything from jackets being single pocket or gatefold, right through an insert with lyrics or liner notes, download card stickers, anything like that too. So
we deal with we work with a Auckland-based printer who does 90% of our printing as well. So most of what we can do is done in New Zealand or even in Auckland. So we're pretty lucky with that too.
Yeah, wow. And for the first time since the 80s.
Yeah. I think they were a little bit surprised when we came for quotes for what we wanted to do. And they're like, okay, we'll give this a go. And I don't think they realised probably how much business that was going to bring them as a result too, from how busy we've become. So, yeah.
Awesome. And we'll be back in a moment with Joel and Ben to hear how they built the business, the demand for records, and what's next. Spark is proud to partner with the Sustainable Business Network and the Climate Action Toolbox. The free Climate Action Toolbox can provide you with simple step-by-step guides to measure and reduce your emissions. Help lead the way to a low-carbon future for New Zealand. Visit sparklab.co.nz/sustainability to find out more.
Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tamaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today.
Dreaming of a better sleep? Tossing and turning is not your destiny. And Ollie is here to help. Ollie invites you to sink into sweet, sweet slumber to improve your mental and physical health and overall wellness. More than just melatonin, Ollie's ingredients help you unwind your mind for a delightfully dreamy drift off. Sleep is on the way at Ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
Oki mai anō, and welcome back to Business is Boring, where we're with Ben and Joel from Holiday Records. So tell us what scale you're at today, right? Because you've got this awesome plant in Auckland Central, right near the City Works depot, and you started out with like merch and records and a whole kind of retail situation. But now what's the scope of the business?
As you mentioned, we started off, with one machine and a small little record store out the front, but it's sort of just grown into a beast that we can't control at the moment. We had to get rid of our record store just to make more room for sleeving and boxing. But yeah, we've got one machine, and when we start, we were running, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and so at the very beginning struggling to press, a couple hundred records a day. But at the moment we're pressing 16 hours a day. So we've got 2 8-hour shifts, 7 days a week. And we're making about 1,200 to 1,300 records a day at the moment. Yeah, which is a lot more than I don't think we ever anticipated when we started. So yeah, and from when we started year on year, we've been about doubling our capacity. So we've almost maxed out we have maxed out with our one machine, which, brings us to the next point that we have ordered a second machine to hopefully give us some more capacity, and hopefully we can fill that with more records to press in the future.
That's heaps, right?
You'd think so.
Two shifts a day, 7 days a week is a lot. Like, tell me about the journey to build that demand. Like, how did you get out there, and having taken that plunge of committing to this, big investment and, taking on kind of like a lease and kind of retail-y kind of space around town. How did you go about building up to the level you're at now?
Well, I suppose it started, at the very start, it was Joel and I doing everything, kind of reaching out, but we quickly realised we needed some fuel. So we actually, our first ever hire, which we couldn't really afford, but we went for it, was hiring someone on a 6-month contract just to call everyone and anyone that might be potentially of interest to us. Initially, that was slow. There was a lot of hesitancy with using us because we were rookies. There was no tried and tested good records in the market, because with vinyl they have to look good and sound good. So it's really vital. But slowly we chipped away, I suppose, at some New Zealand clients, mainly through word of mouth. We started with friends bands. We started kind of building a reputation as producing good records. And then, like I suppose any business in any situation, if you keep at it long enough, there is always a bit of luck involved. And we had our slice of luck in terms of trying to breach the international market when the COVID lockdowns happened. And the one pressing plant at the time in Australia was based in Melbourne, and they went through that horrendously long lockdown period, and that included their pressing plant. So Aussies and the big labels still wanted records because it was just Melbourne that was locked down. And given our proximity to Australia, they came to us. And I suppose on the back of our reputation getting better and building and the trust around that in our records, because we had kind of taken on clients such as Flying Nun and some other bigger New Zealand ones. So there was a bit of our reputation was getting pretty solid. And they gave us a go, and Joel and I said, we've really got to nail this because the Australian market's so much bigger. So with that little bit of luck, we took on a lot of Australian jobs, and from there, kind of just built into an international kind of market as well as local.
Yeah, like, did I see like 70% goes overseas?
Yeah, I think last year, I was trying to do some maths, it was about 60-70% of the total records that we pressed were exported, which I guess shows the comparative size of New Zealand's music industry with Australia's and elsewhere. But I think it's just been, for us, huge demand worldwide and just limited supply worldwide too. So Australia and, as I said, New Zealand used to get their records pressed overseas, but overseas don't really have time or room for them. So they had to look inward, look domestically, and see who was around. And we were there with our hands up, or hands waving that we could do it. And they gave us a crack, and I guess they haven't really looked back. So we've been really lucky with that for sure.
Pretty amazing turnaround after so many years, 40 odd years of it being imported, right? Or 30 odd years of it being imported. And then what kind of artists? Because I guess when it, comes to mind as, kind of independent, like Holiday Records has a vibe of like an independent record label, right? And this real indie spirit to it. But it's a full mix of stuff, hey, from like the biggest names through to, bands who do have just like small dedicated followings.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've pressed records for the likes of Johnny Cash albums, Portishead, Lana Del Rey. One of our ethos when we started was to be available for any and all New Zealand artists as well. And we still kind of make sure that's really front of mind, and that's really important to us, that if you want to record and you're in New Zealand, we're here to be able to do that. Even if you're 150 and you're only selling them to your family, we still want to be the company that can do that for you as well. So we have done these big ones, but we do, just as a little segue, our minimum order is a little lower than the rest of the world probably. We're 150, and that's just to open up that market of anyone really wanting records to be pressed.
Yeah, I think, as I said, what we just discussed, 60 or 70% is exported, but I think that might be a little misleading because the large majority of our clients are actually New Zealand based. We've just got a few large Australian ones that just have massive orders. So in terms of record quantity, a lot of them going overseas. But we definitely deal with all, we like to think most of New Zealand artists, whether they're small garage, rock bands, to the likes of Flying Nun, who we do a large majority of their pressings too. So we do cover all bases for sure.
That's so, and like, how does it feel like, growing up with records, and then maybe, I don't know, have you pressed a record that like was something you grew up listening to, like like a Portishead or?
Yeah, even like CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival, or Johnny Cash, and that was pretty, those are pretty surreal to be able to, because we never thought that was going to happen. If that's fair to say. We never thought we thought we'd service the local market, and that was it. So it's pretty awesome.
And that local market, like I remember I went to visit Peter King, the lathe cut vinyl guy in Mount Somers outside of Ashburton, maybe. I went and did like a media story on him, and he ruled, but he's doing like super small run, super kind of punk DIY kind of approach to, lathe cut as opposed to pressing as well. So not nearly as, big numbers that you can put through. But it has been kind of like held on to by this real indie spirit, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, the indie spirit's really what got it through the rise of CD, to be honest. It was those indie kind of punk labels and dance labels in the US and UK that really kept the demand going. And then the likes of Peter King, it's like a one-off thing because he makes them by hand physically, whereas we have an automated machine pumping out. But you've got to give a lot of credit to Peter King and the likes of those people because it kept it relevant. And I actually got one of our band's EPs cut by Peter, and it was another part of our story as to why we became a pressing plant because we were like, this is cool.
Yeah, he's an absolute legend.
He'll go down in history as a massive legend in New Zealand music for sure.
Yeah, loves his cars and like just is so fun.
He's great.
Yeah. Awesome. And what comes next? So you've got another machine kind of commissioned, or on the way, ready to be commissioned. But where do you see it going next?
That's a good question. Yeah, well, obviously, vinyl is our bread and butter. So, So yeah, our first port of call was to increase the capacity since we sort of maxed it out recently. But I think we've positioned ourselves as a music brand as well. When we started, we knew New Zealand was a small country, so we thought, why not, dip our toes into some merch and some branding in a record store, which I think was successful at the time when it was open, and it allowed not our friends and family and potential other customers to interact with the brand where they were never going to ever press a record in their time. So I guess it's left the door open for us to potentially move into different parts of the music industry. Like I wouldn't know or couldn't say exactly where, but I think there's definitely opportunity elsewhere for sure.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you got to nail your fundamentals, which is for us is pressing vinyl. And we're still in that phase where we've got to keep going. We've built a pretty good reputation and we're fairly busy, but it's nailing that, then we'll move on. But like Joel said, there's endless, under the music kind of umbrella, it can be endless, whether it's just, putting on gigs or it's something we're actively talking about at the moment anyway, in terms of diversifying as something else.
Yeah, we've built a great brand that, people are part of the journey, right? Because it could be real anonymous. It could just be kind of like, pressing PVC in a roll-up factory somewhere.
Which is probably the smart move, really.
Cheaper rental move. But.
We had two options when we started, and we went down the option of no one's doing this here. It's an amazing, fascinating process. So people might want to see it. So we really wanted to make it available to the public to be able to view and see. So we took a lease on in central Auckland, opposite Cityworks Depot, as opposed to maybe a warehouse out south or west or something, which might logistically have been a lot easier. But we put in like Joel said, we had a little retail space. We put a big window out. We cut some stone blocks out behind us and put a window in so you could see the process. We're still there to this day, even though it's a little tight for space, but we're managing fine. And we just wanted to make ourselves available. And it's really cool because if a band's pressing in New Zealand, if they're younger especially, they probably haven't seen it being pressed. And we welcome people to come in, film it, be around it, because it's so magical, the process of making a record.
That is magic.
I think, that having that strong brand is super important, because we've almost become this destination where artists want to come and press, and been asked to put our logo on their artwork, for example, which no pressing plants ever even mention where the records are pressed. If you look at a record at home, you largely couldn't figure out where it was pressed. So I think that's great for just increasing that word of mouth and making sure that we're always pretty busy.
Funnily enough, back when we didn't have staff was a point where we thought it could go either way. We could fail here because Joel and I were at our wits' end trying to do everything, but we couldn't afford staff, and we didn't have enough time in the day. Like Joel said, we were doing the pressing, the sleeving, the jacketing, the shrink wrapping, and then we're like, admin, we've got to do all the invoicing and the quoting and the sales and the client side of things as well. And that was a real period for us where we were like, are we actually going to be able to turn out enough records and make enough money to service this loan we've got? Because that's the whole point in the end of the day. And we just had to work hard and smart to find a way to be able to afford our first ever employee, which is probably 3 years ago or so, and build from there.
Yeah, awesome. What would your advice be to people who do see like a hole in the market that, it's kind of obvious people love vinyl and there was none to be had, but it's a big jump to make. Like, what advice do you have for people who are looking at something like that?
Well, we did say there was a gaping hole, but we had to move really quickly. So that would be one thing, is do a lot of due diligence to see if it's a good idea. Like we mentioned right at the start, it was obviously hard because no one was doing it. But is it impossible? And kind of structure yourself to a point where you can set it out so you can see the roadmap to being able to do it. I suppose set certain goals. In our case, find a partner that complements you really, really well. So Joel brings a lot that I do not, and probably vice versa. Maybe Joel just does everything. And just especially we were a bit younger, so we're maybe naive and didn't have a lot of life debt or anything like that. So we had a little less risk in that sense. So we just absolutely dropped everything and went for it. And we were probably at a point of our life that if it was a massive mistake, we could probably rebuild. So we just went for it, really. If we said to ourselves, if another one opens up while we're planning in New Zealand, we'll probably just drop it. But so we had to really move fast.
Yeah, I think, to what Ben said, or if people were in a particular or in the same position as we were, we did see a good opportunity. I think research is a major one. We went on a trip to the States and to Canada to just visit as many pressing plants as we could, because there wasn't anyone locally we could speak to, and just get a gauge on the industry, see where it was going. So yeah, I guess really stress test your idea, like speak with as many people as possible, even if it's your most pessimistic friend, and see if they can pick holes in your idea. They're asking you the right questions, and if you've got the right answers, then maybe that's a sign that you could at least take it to the next step and start planning. Because I think after that you definitely need a solid plan in place as well.
And as a final thought, what will success be for you two and also for Holiday Records?
I suppose overall happiness. I mean, for me personally, as a personal thing, I really, and I know this is the same as Joel because we talk about it, it's having, a meaningful life that you're happy and you've got time for your family, but you've got something you're striving towards at work that fulfills you as well. And on a business level, we want a really good environment. We want our staff to come to happy. We know it's quite funny for us. We never really thought we'd have staff at the start. So it's like having 8 people that really rely on us as well. So making sure they're happy, their lives are happy, and that we're content and we have a really good work-life balance. I think that's key. We can't get too caught up in work, or on the other hand, life. So it's really good to have that balance, I suppose.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I guess that's why Ben and I make such good business partners. We are so much on that same page, just having a balance in business and life, and getting the business to a place where we can have that luxury of that flexibility. Like, I think starting this business, I was a little bit naive that, as soon as you become your own boss, you have all this flexibility, but it is certainly just the complete opposite to that. So, you have to put the hard yards in, but to a degree, I guess we're still doing that. But I guess, having equal engagement in my life with work and business, I think I'll be pretty stoked with that. But in terms of the business, I don't think we'll ever be fully, quote unquote consider ourselves successful. I think just having new goals, moving the goalposts, getting a new machine and trying to fill that capacity. I think having small goals and small wins, I think, is good for us for sure.
We always kind of said there's never going to be a destination, so you're not going to get there and be like, oh my God, we're so happy, this is the end. We've always put emphasis on enjoying the journey, because we were like, oh, let's press a record. And then we did that, and we're like, okay, let's press 2 records a day, then let's press it. And then we're pressing Johnny Cash and we're still like move forward. So there's no end point, there's no destination. So it's so important to enjoy your journey, because literally you're never going to get to this destination we don't think that you're happy with, because you always want to keep going, keep wanting more.
Yeah, love it.
Keep bettering yourself. And as Ben mentioned, just having staff is a major one now too. Like, both of us have been employees longer than we've ever been an employer. So just making sure that they're happy, fulfilled, and coming along with us on this ride and not sort of following behind us, I think is a major. So if they're happy, I think we're equally as happy in business for sure.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing the story today. Love what you're doing and can't wait to see where it goes next. That's Ben Wallace and Joel Woods of Holiday Records.
Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, thanks, Simon.
So thank you to Ben and Joel, to you for listening, and for everyone who helps make this happen, like our producer, Te Aihe Butler. Do follow Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to rate and leave a review if you like what we do. E noho rā.
From the Spin-Off Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz. Kia ora e te iwi, Te Aihe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spinoff. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spinoff member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate. The Spinoff Podcast Network.